All right. And we're back. I am back. Notes. Hood Horrors. Nature Boy. Episode 1. This is 6 pages. I'm gonna have to get another. I'm gonna have to get another book. Okay. Will probably be multiple parts also because I have 6 pages of notes. And wow. Okay, so the documentary starts with the backstory of Harlem, the drug game, and how it affected the community and ultimately Eligio, Nature Boy, and his family. So when I refer to he, I'm talking about Eligio, i.e. Nature Boy. So he was born in April of 82, addicted to heroin. His father was 70 years old, and he died shortly after his birth from a heart attack. Now, he was the fourth of 5 children. He lived in one of the East Harlem projects, and before his 2nd birthday, he and his siblings were taken by CPS because of neglect. His mother was an addict, and she OD'd before his 3rd birthday. After this, the siblings were split up. So he and his younger brother, Leo, were kept together. He had an older brother and 2 older sisters. They went elsewhere. So the boys were separated by the state of New York because he and Leo were always fighting each other and getting put out of foster homes. Now, he was sent to a foster home in Queens, New York, where he says he began humping boys and girls. He also admitted to a sexual act with a dog as a child. Okay. He was sexually abused by his foster parent. He was removed from the foster home after telling a social worker about the abuse. So after that, he was reunited with his younger brother, Leo. So he and his brother were adopted by the Bishops between 89 and 83. During this time, both of the boys were diagnosed with behavioral disorders shortly after being adopted by the Bishops, and both of them were put on meds. So Leo was diagnosed as hyperactive, and Eligio was ADD. So both of them were put on Ritalin, and the foster mom, adopted mom, Mrs. Bishop, moved them from regular classroom setting to special ed so that she could get an SSI check for the both of them. So Eligio says that Mrs. Bishop was mean and had never any choice for them. They was always in the yard, always working. Just traumatic for him. He said that was traumatic for him. Now, church was mandatory because Mr. Bishop was a pastor. So they was in church all the time. Corporal punishment was also used to discipline them. Now, Eligio feels that he was abused, and because of the abuse, he began to run away as a form of rebellion. Now, once he started running away, that is when he started getting arrested for robbery, breaking and entering, and burglary. At 14, he was sentenced to 5 years in juvie for his crimes. He spent 2 years in Jamesburg Detention Center. From there, he was sent to spend 2 more years in another facility. Okay. All right. So during his stay at the facility and a detention center, he made multiple attempts and threats to unalive himself. So what they did from there is they transferred him to a mental facility for 6 months. During the time in the mental facility, he was able to find his 2 older sisters, Nija and Tanya. At the time, his older brother was serving time in prison. Now, Eligio was released from the mental facility at 19, and he moved back in with the Bishops. He was kicked out shortly thereafter because of an argument between he and the Bishops. So from there, he moved to South Philly in 2001 and worked as a security guard until he joined the Army. He was honorably discharged because of his mental health issues. From there, he moved back to South Philly with his friend. Then he went to Job Corps. During the time that he was at Job Corps, the friend that he was living with in South Philly was unalived. They never found out who did it. So from there, he and Leo moved to the Bronx. Leo, his brother, his younger brother, moved to the Bronx with their sister, Nija. After he moved in with Nija, they got into an altercation. He and Leo left. And then they moved to Augusta with their older sister, Tanya. So during the time that Eligio was in Augusta, he worked at a slaughterhouse, working about 12 hours a day. So something happened, and him and Tanya got into a physical altercation, and he punched her in the face. So she kicked him out. Okay? So at that point, Eligio, i.e. Nature Boy, was homeless for a couple of weeks. During his stint of homelessness for those couple of weeks, he got back in touch with an old friend from Philly who was then living in ATL and encouraged him to go to ATL. So once he got to ATL, he became a barber, and he began using women for their cars and a place to stay. Okay. All right. So during that time frame, when he was a barber, he modeled for a little bit of time. He kept barbering, and he was also selling, to help him stay afloat financially. Now, he did have a girlfriend, and they got into an argument, and she kicked him out of her house, which means he was homeless again. While in the midst of his homelessness, he was presented with an opportunity to strip at a gay club. Okay. He seized the opportunity. All right. Now, they named him Tyson because he favored Tyson Beckford. If you don't know who it is, Google it. That man is fine. Nice body. Anyway, so he quickly became a headliner and started traveling the country and in the States as a headliner. Now, during this time, he had a son. I forgot what her name was, but that son was named after him. His name is EJ. Looked just like him too. Then he had another child with Maisha, and that son's name is Osiris. During this time of having children and also working at a gay strip club, he became an escort for the gays. Okay? He needed to make more money, and that was the way that he desired to make more money. So remember, he was a stripper at a gay club, and he was also a gay escort. From his words and his mouth, he says that he is straight, and he allowed his body to be utilized for other people's pleasure, and that he was gay for pay. Okay. He starred in a gay corn as a whale, and he said he regrets that. Anyway, all right, so he admitted to being attracted to trans women, but up until that time, he hadn't ever engaged sexually with them until he became a stripper at the gay clubs. All right, so from there, he said that the trans women to him were more women than women. Don't come in here with that. We're not getting on that soapbox. Those are his words, okay? And he has every right to feel how he feels. You do, but not over here. Okay. In reference to that. I don't care what your views are. We're just doing a recap. All right. So the deeper that he got into the stripper world, the heavier he drank. And then from there, when he got drunk, he would physically abuse Maisha, which is the baby's mother of his second son. All right. Now, one of the worst physical abuse that Maisha suffered happened. They got into an altercation at a club, right? So then she left, and then he came to her house and was stabbing her tires, trying to lure her out of the house. So she saw him out there. She told him, like, no, you drunk. I don't want to have nothing to do with this. So then he went to the door and was pulling her out. So he pulled her out of the door, dragged her in the yard, and started pummeling her in her face. In the midst of all this, somebody must have called the police, because the police showed up, pulled him off of her, and took him straight to the jail. Now, from his words, from what they played it. Hood Horrors played it. He said that he was trying to unalive her. That was his purpose. That is what he was aiming for. Okay? All right now. So he was arrested and charged with aggravated assault. The judge was going to throw the book at him. However, Maisha wrote a letter to the judge and the prosecutor admitting half of the altercation was her fault. That is how he was able to avoid being prosecuted for aggravated assault. He was charged, but he did not serve any time for that charge. So what he did, he had to pay a fine, and he was sentenced to attend anger management classes instead of going to prison for aggravated assault, because Maisha wrote a letter to the prosecution and the judge saying half of it is my fault. Okay. Now, they eventually got back together. He stopped stripping and escorting. Then he went to school to get his license for barbering as a barber. He built his clientele from his mouth. He built his clientele by going to gay clubs and bars and hotel bars. Because from his words, he said, you know, gay men, they like to be clean. They like to get their hair done. And he knew the clientele. He knew the people. So why not start there? Smart to me. All right. Now, he rented out a hotel room and was barbering inside of the hotel room. They even showed like a video of him, the actual room that he was barbering in. So some of his barber clients were former clients of his when he was a gay escort. And I want to be clear with that, because that's how they made it. They made it clear he was a gay escort. All right. Okay, cool. Now, one of his former clients in particular was this man named Dr. Mike Brown. And he was a president of a theological seminary, and he was also a well-known biblical scholar. So Mike and Nature Boy got real close. They were very, very close. So much so that Mike put Nature Boy's name on his bank account and gave him a $3,000 per month allowance. Okay. Then people speculated that they were coupled, that they was boyfriends. All right. Because they were very close. Moving on. All right. So in 2013, Mike offered Nature Boy the money to open his barbershop. All Nature Boy had to do was to provide Mike with a business plan, which he did. So Mike gave him the money. He found a location, and he opened his shop on June 21st, 2014. Okay. So not long after the shop opened, his brother Leo came to ATL. So Nature Boy let his brother live in the barbershop in the back, and he would sweep up and clean up and do stuff like that to make tips and a little money. Nature Boy did not let him did not let Leo barber in his shop. So what Leo started to do was draw, and he was a really good artist. So that is how he was able to make some money as well. Now, by the end of 2014, Nature Boy's outlook on life began to evolve. So he wanted to live closer to nature, and he did not want to be in ATL anymore. So he started putting a plan together on how to make that happen. So he, in the midst of the gay scene as a stripper and an escort and barbering, he was meeting people, and he would go to dinners with them and have very intellectual conversations and debates and arguments, how he said it, which created a space of made him feel like he didn't belong in the barber world anymore. So he started to distance himself. And in distancing himself, he stayed at home, and he started doing more research on like science history, natural science, astrology, and Black cultural history. Then he bought an RV. and convinced Maisha to go on the road with him and their children to go on the road with him. So Maisha was recording and documenting this process because she was excited to go be on the land and travel around the world and stuff. So on March 3rd, 2015, they started their journey in the RV hunting. And they was going from, I think they traveled all up and down Florida. So they was going from RV to, state park to state park, staying in the RV parks and all that. So during this time, Nature Boy hired a manager to keep the barbershop running. So Leo was left to fend for himself, and he was still living in the back of the barbershop. So Nature Boy, even as they were out in the RV, Maisha said that she could tell that he just wasn't satisfied and that he wanted more. What Nature Boy wanted to do was to disassociate himself from the regular life as much as possible. He didn't want to ride in an RV going to state. He wanted to live on the land in nature, period. However, a month later, a month into the RV journey, they had to come back to Atlanta because his business was failing and it was falling apart. So that is where it ends. All right. So I finished episode 1. It's like 28 minutes and 30 seconds. So it wasn't too short, but it was longer because I was taking notes. Anyway, here is my view. I can see how he got to where he was as far as wanting to separate himself from the day-to-day life because of his background. And also, we aren't really able to understand and pinpoint we know what happens to a woman's body and a baby that taking in drugs. But a lot of the issues don't show up until later on in life. That boy was abused. Now, hold on. Let me be clear. I'm not apologizing, and I'm not being an apologist because of his later behavior. No. I am able to see multiple perspectives because he made a choice to behave in that way. He didn't have to. He was abusing women. And honestly, I think the reason why he was so abusive to women is because of his sexuality and not really being comfortable with it. Because from my perspective, gay for pay, attracted to trans women, stripping at gay clubs, and being a gay escort, baby, I'm not sure if you know this, but at the least, you're bisexual. And ain't nothing wrong with that. I wish we could get to a point as a society to where people are able to be free in what they enjoy sexually and the genders that they want to be with and all the people. Because it's too much. It's too much of this going on. Just let people do what they want to do. Let them love who they want to love. Anyway, I'm not getting on this soapbox. But from my perspective, I can see it. Like all that abuse, he just transferred that. Him and his brother was fighting all the time and they didn't get along. He fighting his sisters and he real quick to hit a woman. He was real quick to hit women. Because in the first episode, there was no mention of him getting into fights with boys and men outside of his brother. But other than that, he was physically assaulting women constantly, consistently. You know what the theory is on that. You abusing women like that, sir. You got a secret to tell that you don't want nobody to know. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments about what the recap was. You don't have to watch it. I'll watch it for you. And we're going to keep moving on. I'm going to watch episode 2, make my notes, and then I'll record that video too. I don't know if I'm going to get it done today. I may save it for tomorrow because it is a lot. But that is episode 1, Hood Horrors, which I will tag. And that's it. So again, like, share, and follow. Tell a friend to tell a friend that we watching this together. We can watch it together. You know what I'm saying? I'll give my precaps and my recaps, and then we'll go from there. Peace.